So, and my good friend and colleague Effie are going to make a two-part presentation about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart, which is games. I'm going to talk about how playground games, board games, classroom games, video games, all can be adapted to the classroom and become undercover agents in education and work undercover, as I said, to make learning fun. Let's go to the next slide. Where is the control? I don't know. Okay, so research suggests that using games can help in enhancing students' creative powers by implementing their imagination, their problem-solving skills. And secondly, and this is especially true of younger learners, games can help them focus and pay attention for longer periods of time than they do usually. In addition, if the game requires movement, students can take a break from the sedative structure of lessons and move around, which is really enjoyable for all students, especially the ones who are a little hyperactive. Finally, learners can hone their social skills, their negotiation and collaboration powers, when they are asked to perform in teams or pairs. And whether one is a fan of Gardner's multiple intelligence theory or not, it is true that games engage in multiple senses, learning styles and skills so that they appeal to the majority of learners who take part in them. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now let's move on to the language classroom in particular. Most teachers, and I'm no exception of course, will use games as fillers or as a means to an end, that is, to practice, to revise, to introduce structures, grammar, vocabulary. I believe that this is a very beneficial and effective way to use games, but the most important advantage of using games in the classroom is that they provide motivation, intrinsic motivation because students want to be there and participate, and extrinsic because they might win something and get, self-esteem and feeling of gratification. And probably the most important advantage is that we can use games to help students practice the language in a non-threatening environment. The classroom is not test-oriented or dictation-oriented, but it is focused on the child and on the learner. And I think this is the biggest advantage. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I believe also that games can be used as cultural vehicles. I mean that students can learn what kind of games are played in England or how they are played by children who are native speakers of the language. And secondly, the games provide them with meaningful practice of the structures and vocabulary and grammar that they are taught. But most importantly, and I can't stress this enough, games create a positive learning environment, as I said. They foster bonding of students with their classmates and of students with the teacher. And of course, they predispose the students positively so that our learners want to come to the classroom and participate in whatever we are proposing. And I think this is the biggest benefit of all. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, before we use games in the classroom, we should have some ground rules. Students should be fully aware of what the objectives of the games are and what the rules governing it are as well. Teachers should be fair in observing how the game is played to make sure that the students abide by the rules, and how teams are formed so that no student can feel left out. The most easy way to ensure that this happens is that if we form the teams in a random order so that no student feels that they have not been picked by anyone. And of course, we should be flexible and adapt to the level of our learners, their preferences, their competence, and of course their temperament. Because you know if your noisy classroom needs a game which requires physical movement or not. You can be the judge of that. And of course, we should never forget about fun. Next slide, please. Okay, and now let's talk a bit about the role of the teacher. The teacher can assume any one of these roles or a combination of them. So he can be the leader who sets the rules and makes sure that they are followed and intervenes whenever he or she feels that they need to. The teacher can be the monitor who is is milder than the leader because they just go around and make sure that everything is running smoothly. The teacher can also be the facilitator who helps students who are shyer or who are stuck to express themselves in the target language and help them. The motivator, of course, is the one who makes sure that the spirits of the team is up, and when interest is waning, to wake the students up again and get the game moving. And the sidekick, which is the mildest role of all, who only intervenes when he or she, and if he or she is told by the students and does not get any initiative. Next slide, please. Thank you, Rob. And now I'm going to talk a bit about games and the internet. There's a plethora of educational applications in games, which are language oriented, and students can use them to practice grammar and vocabulary. However, I'd like to talk a bit about MMORPG games, which are role-playing games, or games with a moral, social, or ethical context. For example, if you take a look at the second game I am suggesting, a game which was developed by the United Nations, and it simulates the experience of being a refugee. So students, these are not typical language games, but they can be played in the target language, and students can interact with native speakers of English, or they can learn powerful and meaningful life lessons. For example, to relate on the experience of being a refugee. Next slide, please. So the benefits of video games are, of course, that students can work at their own pace, at their own level, and they can make various attempts and play and replay the game so that they do not feel that they have failed. We can also use video games or online games to flip our classroom and assign a game as homework and then come back and check it, or receive a link from our students and check what they have done. It is a wonderful way to share and connect with native speakers or speakers of English from around the world, but as long as it is done in a controlled environment. We do not want our students to talk to anyone or get into some shady chat rooms or whatever. And of course, it's still fun, because who doesn't like the interface of the games, which are full of colors and sounds and all that stuff. I think children and adults equally enjoy video games and online games. Next slide, please. So, I'm going to talk a bit about the heroes and villains activity. As I said, it is a two-part presentation. This activity was based on the idea of the scavenger hunt. Students assume the identity of a superhero and try to beat the supervillain, the eraser. And so they do so by completing various tasks. They go on missions, and at the end result is that they depict the final battle with the eraser by creating their own comic online. So me and my dear colleague Effie, we try to incorporate as many of the principles of using games in the classroom as we could, and to connect them to the age of the internet and communication and of games online. Next slide, please. And before I hand you over to Effie, I'd like to say that I was really honored to be here, and I'm really proud of myself that I have kept the time limit. And I just would like to urge you to use as many games as possible in the classroom, not only for language practice, but the pure joy of it. Because if you remember, from the time we were younger till now and later on, 7 of the most favorite words in the classroom were, "So, who wants to play a game?" Thank you very much for your attention.